Hello people, welcome back to The Struggle, where we dive deep into the most effective ideas, stories, theories and strategies for overcoming life's challenges. This is episode 63, and this is the third episode in my three-part series on time. So far we've covered how best to view the future and the present, and now it's time to deal with the past. And this one is arguably the most difficult to deal with because, well, the past has already happened, so we can't change it. All we can do is learn to perceive it in the best way possible. Now, there are two main ways in which we problematically think about the past. The first is regret. It's wishing we acted differently than we did. And the second is longing for days gone by. It's wishing we were back in the good old days. It's wishing we were back in a time when life was simpler. So let's discuss why we experience these two aspects of life. And first, regret. Why do we regret things? Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, we regret what we ought to learn from. Experiencing regret is an indication that we have done something wrong, or not acted at all, or behaved in a manner that could cause us harm or those around us. And so we regret what we ought to change. For instance, a hunter-gatherer who faces off against a lion without an effective weapon will quickly regret making that choice. And if they learn to tell the tale, they'll learn the lesson that you shouldn't face off against a lion if you're not prepared. So, as much as we hate regret, and as much as we wish we didn't regret anything, it does serve a vital function. But like I've said many times over the course of this podcast, if we fast forward to the modern world, the lessons regret tries to teach us aren't as clear-cut. They aren't black and white, and they aren't life or death. We certainly regret actions, but we also regret things we've said. We now have to wrestle with our feelings and other people's feelings, and that can be complicated and emotionally difficult. And so there's problem one with regards to the past, regretting our past actions. The next problem is wishing we were back in past days. It's longing for our past. Now, longing for the past also serves quite a few evolutionary functions. Firstly, remembering positive past memories helps regulate the stress of the present moment, because the present is so uncertain, and because we humans absolutely hate uncertainty, remembering the certain positive experiences we have had that are not uncertain in any way allows us to soothe the stress of the present moment, as well as feel safer in the present moment. Another function longing for past memories serves is in bonding with others. We bond over our shared memories. And lastly, the experience of nostalgia, the experience of longing for our past, serves the function of increasing optimism for the future. Because we know the past was positive, it helps us hope for the same in the future, which can motivate us to re-engage and move forward with the inspiration of our past. Now, of course, this would help our hunter-gatherer ancestors who didn't think in the same complex ways we do today. But what happens when a 21st century human being with complex thought patterns, existential dread, and philosophical ponderings longs for the past? Well, we continually move forward, longing for what's already occurred, whilst dreading what's to come. We distract ourselves from the uncertainty of the present with the positive and certain past. And so we live a life always longing for what's been and never enjoying what's to come or what's happening right now. So, we have two problems. Problem one is regretting our past, and problem two is longing for our past. So let's start with problem one. So one way I try to mitigate the negative effects of regret is with something I heard from Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He said, Living life with no regrets is about learning and understanding from your perceived mistakes, but not being unkind to who you were then. Instead, we should recognize that we did the best we could do at the time. Now, regrets are for sure signs of lessons we ought to learn, but we should also use them as an indicator that we ought to be more compassionate towards ourselves. Everything we did in our past, we did with the incredibly limited knowledge we had at the time, and so lambasting our past selves who didn't know any better is like shouting at a child for falling over when they're learning to walk. The child doesn't know how to walk properly yet, and is doing the best they can do with the limited knowledge they have. So we should remind ourselves that we are always doing the best we can do with the limited knowledge we have. And that brings me to another way in which to view our past mistakes. You are a grown-up child. We all are. We're all just scrambling about trying to figure this whole life thing out. And no one has it all figured out. We're all just fucking children trying to get through the day. And so whenever you feel the painful sting of regret creeping up on you, speak to the child within you and be as compassionate as you would be towards your child. Would you lambast your child for doing what you regret? Hopefully not. And so why would you treat yourself any differently? Now, back to problem 2. How can we think about longing for days gone by in a more productive and meaningful way so that we make the present more bearable and the future more exciting? Well, one way is to recognize that our memories are biased towards positive past experiences, and we tend to remember positive memories with a glow that we didn't experience at the time. We romanticize the past because it's safer to do so. We can forget the worries of the present for a minute just by thinking about a past event through rose-tinted glasses. And so we must try to remember what we actually experienced at the time. Because most likely, we weren't experiencing how we're remembering we experienced it to be. We always have worries. There's always something to do. There's always something to think about in our futures. And so it's a rarity to have any positive past experience when you had no worries at all. If you did, cherish those moments because those are incredibly rare. But remembering past experiences through rose-tinted glasses is fooling ourselves. Of course, you will have had positive past experiences. But past memories aren't unique, and they aren't exclusive to the past. We tend to think that our past positive memories are gone, and therefore we won't have any positive experiences again, especially when you're depressed in the moment, or you're anxious, or you're going through a difficult present. But we must remember nothing lasts forever. Both positive and negative experiences eventually end. And so we must also remind ourselves that there is positive experiences in our futures, as well as negative ones. And if we're going through a negative experience right now, in the present, we must remind ourselves that there's positive ones to come, rather than constantly longing for past memories. And also, that notion that we long for the good old days, or when times were simpler, it's just our brains remembering a life without worries, when in reality, as I've said, you most certainly did have worries. You didn't experience that memory the way you're remembering. We have that bias towards positive experiences, and we remember them through rose-tinted glasses, and we must remind ourselves that the present isn't all that bad. It's certainly uncertain, and the future is certainly uncertain, but you will have positive experiences, and you probably will long for this moment right now in the future. We need to refrain from constantly thinking about the past and enjoy the present. Remind ourselves that we will long for these days. These days will not last forever. The past is certainly over, and there are positive experiences there, and we should most certainly cherish them because they didn't last forever. That's why they're so meaningful to us. But we should also cherish our present and our futures, because we actually have them. Our futures aren't guarantees, and we're lucky, so lucky to live. And our futures can be anything we want them to be. And so, why long for what's past when the road ahead could be even better? So there you go. There's my 3 rantings on how best to perceive time. I hope there was at least some little nuggets of gold to take away from them. Now, stay tuned for the next episode of The Struggle, because it's a special guest episode. But for now, as always, the answer lies in the struggle. So keep on struggling.